It begins on a cold November evening in 1971, the kind of night where rain slides down the windows and strangers huddle in airports waiting for flights that will take them back home. At Portland International, a man dressed in a black suit and tie, carrying only a briefcase, walked calmly to the counter of Northwest Orient Airlines. He gave his name as Dan Cooper, though the press would later mistakenly call him D.B. Cooper, a name that would stick and become legend. He bought a one-way ticket to Seattle. It cost just $20, and within hours it would buy him a place in history. The flight itself should have been routine. Just 30 minutes through light rain, 36 passengers, and a crew going about their work. The aircraft was a Boeing 727-100, but Dan Cooper wasn't just another businessman heading north. Because tucked inside that briefcase, he said, was a bomb. He handed a note to a flight attendant. She didn't even read it at first, assuming it was just a phone number. He leaned closer, whispered, "Miss, you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb." He wanted $200,000 in cash, 4 parachutes, a fuel truck waiting in Seattle, and no tricks. The FBI scrambled. They gathered 10,000 $20 bills, each serial number carefully recorded, hoping one day they could trace the money. And why 4 parachutes? Cooper was clever. By asking for more than one, he made it impossible for the FBI to hand him a sabotage chute. Because what if he forced a hostage to jump with him? The hijacking of Flight 305 had begun. What makes this story different from every other hijacking in history is that Dan Cooper wasn't violent. He wasn't angry. Witnesses said he was calm, almost polite. Calm and collected, Cooper leaned back in his seat, lit a cigarette, ordered a bourbon and soda, and slid on a pair of dark sunglasses. The image of a man in control, unfazed by the chaos around him. He even paid for his drinks. When passengers wondered why the plane was circling instead of landing, the crew reassured them. Just a little mechanical problem, nothing to worry about. Cooper had instructed them to keep everyone calm. It was as if he wasn't just hijacking a plane. He was playing a part. When the aircraft finally landed in Seattle, the passengers were released in exchange for the money and parachutes. But Cooper kept the crew. The next act of his plan was about to begin. The 727 was refueled, and with Cooper's precise instructions, it took off again into the night, heading southwest into the forests of Washington. He demanded the plane fly low, under 10,000 feet. He demanded the flaps be extended, the landing gear down, and speed carefully controlled at around 175 knots. It was a strange request, but aviation experts knew what it meant. Cooper was preparing for a jump, and somewhere over the dark forests of Washington state, in the freezing wind and rain, the man calling himself Dan Cooper opened the rear stairway of the plane and vanished into the night sky. What came next was one of the largest manhunts in American history. The FBI scoured forests, rivers, mountains. Hundreds of soldiers, helicopters, even local residents combed through terrain so unforgiving it seemed designed to swallow secrets whole. But there was no trace of him. No parachute, no body, no briefcase, nothing. It was as if the earth itself had swallowed D.B. Cooper whole. Over the years, theories spread like wildfire. Some believe he died in the fall, his parachute caught in the trees, his body lost forever in the wilderness. Others believe he made it out alive, disappearing into a new life, carrying the ransom cash with him. In 1980, a boy camping with his family found something on the banks of the Columbia River. Decayed $20 bills totaling $5,800, part of Cooper's ransom money. But the discovery only deepened the mystery. If Cooper drowned, where was his body? If he survived, why would he abandon part of the cash? The story refuses to add up. For decades, investigators chased suspects. A logger in Oregon, a leather worker in Washington, an ex-paratrooper, even a man who called himself D.B. Cooper in a drunken brag at a bar. Some suspects gained real traction. Richard McCoy, a Vietnam veteran, hijacked a plane just months later in almost the exact same way, parachuting out with stolen cash. Some FBI agents swore he was Cooper himself. Others pointed to Dwayne Weber, who on his deathbed confessed, "I'm Dan Cooper." Or Robert Rackstraw, a former paratrooper and con man, who many believed had the skills to pull it off. And then Kenneth Christensen, a Northwest Orient employee, accused in a book that reignited the mystery. The FBI interviewed thousands, analyzed fingerprints, parachute fibers, DNA from Cooper's cigarette butts. But each lead fell apart. Each suspect slipped away. The only solid clue left behind was Cooper's black tie, found on his seat. Decades later, scientists discovered tiny metal particles on it, the kind found in aerospace manufacturing. Did Cooper work in a factory? Was he an engineer? The clue raised more questions than answers. In 2016, after 45 years, the FBI officially closed the case. They had no answers, only a legend. But here's the strange part. More than 50 years later, Cooper still lives on in our culture. He's inspired movies, songs, comic books, even tattoos. But let's rewind for a moment. Why this plane? Why this airline? Why this particular evening? The Boeing 727 wasn't just any aircraft. It was unique. Unlike most jets, the 727 had a rear stairway that could be lowered during flight, a feature originally designed for small airports without jet bridges. To most people, it was an obscure engineering detail. To Cooper, it was the perfect escape hatch. That meant Cooper didn't need to force the cockpit open or jump from a side door at high altitude and high speed. He had a built-in exit ramp that let him leave the plane without being seen or stopped. Investigators were stunned by how precise his instructions were. This raised an unsettling question. Who was he? A pilot? A paratrooper? An airline worker? The clues only deepened the mystery. Cooper asked for parachutes from a civilian skydiving school, not military gear. That detail matters. Military chutes were reliable but not steerable. Civilian chutes gave him control. He could choose where to land. He wasn't gambling blindly. The FBI even wondered if he picked the name Dan Cooper for a reason. In France, a popular comic book hero in the 1960s went by the name Dan Cooper. He was a Royal Canadian Air Force test pilot who went on daring adventures in jets and parachutes. Was this a coincidence? Or was Cooper deliberately borrowing the name of a fictional aviator, blurring the line between reality and legend even before he jumped? And then there's the money. He asked for an oddly specific amount, one that airlines had on hand for ransom scenarios, as if he knew the limits of what they could provide quickly. So who was Dan Cooper? We may never know. That's the story of D.B. Cooper, the man who hijacked a plane and vanished forever.